for my part, welcome. We are in the Ellie Datavault Builder webinar, and let me introduce myself as I'm speaking now. Juha Korpela, Chief Product Officer for Ellie Technologies, responsible for product development and let's say modeling methodological things at Ellie. And yeah, I am here invited by my friend Peter. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm as well happy you had to have it here on the call because I'm working more on the data warehouse side on automating the implementation for the Datavault Builder company. And I'm happy that we have more and more cooperations with teams like Ellie that do more in the modeling sphere, and we can show in this webinar together how this works very well together and how both tools together show added benefit.
Indeed, that is our topic today. And we're going to be focusing on a couple of things. I will be telling you about the overall idea of what Ellie does as a tool, and then we'll tell you how what we do, how that transforms into something that you can do with Peter's Datavault Builder. So I think we can start with the basics of what is Ellie and why I am here. What we do at Ellie is we're focusing on data modeling as a communication tool, really, between business and IT. And here the idea is that we want to enable better communication, enable common understanding, enable common language, use data modeling, especially conceptual kind of business-driven, business-focused modeling as a method for that, and use Ellie as a tool to enable all that. So for that reason, Ellie is a tool built to be as fast and easy as possible. We're focusing on how to make the user experience as smooth and seamless as possible so that you can easily capture what is going on, figure out together cooperatively with your business experts, what are the core entities of this business, how they are related, what is the data structure that we are seeing here. And the tool itself, of course, therefore has to be extremely easily approachable. The UX, we try to keep that top notch. We keep everything simple. This is not complicated. This doesn't have to be highly sophisticated and detailed. It has to just enable us to capture enough information that it can be utilized with in other tools like Datavault Builder. So Ellie is easy to use. It's completely web-based. There's no installations anywhere. It runs on your browser. We support all the main browsers and so on. And what you practically do in Ellie is you create, of course, data models. So we have model design features. We have model design canvas where you create your models. We have things like that. And the model design itself is, of course, linked very deeply with our business glossary. And here is the idea that we want to understand what are the core business entities, what is customer, what is an invoice, how these are related to each other, see what sort of data model forms from that purely business perspective really at this point, and document that understanding of these core concepts into the kind of centralized repository of business concepts that the glossary in Ellie is. So the conceptual models in Ellie and the business glossary are closely interlinked. Ellie is also capable nowadays of doing logical modeling on a slightly more detailed level. We have just added logical modeling in December last year. And we're moving forward, of course, with other things. The idea still remains that Ellie is focused on understanding and documenting your data asset and doing that in a way that enables collaboration. That's very important for us. So you use Ellie basically as a catch point where you can collaborate with your business experts and so on to figure out what's going on, share everything with everyone. And then we have integrations to enable taking these models out of Ellie and utilizing them in some other tool. So this is where Datavault Builder comes in, of course. And we have basically this use case where we like to talk about business-driven data platforms, where in many of our customers, they are using Ellie to capture that structure of the actual business and then use that as a design, as a blueprint for the rest of the data platform stack that you have. The idea here is that you then, as you have captured the real business structure and entities with Ellie, you are then pushing them forward into Datavault Builder. And here, as Peter will demonstrate very soon, we'll see how that works now with the excellent APIs that we have in both tools. So as you take the structure of the data, the entities that have been well defined and understood and are based on the common business glossary, you take them from Ellie, you put them into Datavault Builder, you can start creating your data vault structures into whatever database technology you might be using. And then you're doing reporting and analytics based on that. But as long as you have that understanding, you retain the understanding of the business entities and the structures, and preferably you offer that data back to the business in those same terms and structures that have been documented using Ellie. That makes the whole data platform far more easy to utilize for business users. So this is about creating a robust blueprint for your data warehouse, for your data vault solution, and then utilizing that blueprint in a tool like Datavault Builder. Of course, as happens often with Ellie, as we have been helping people to model these kind of business domains, so to speak, of invoicing, of product development, whatever, and they are using those models in their data platforms, they might realize that, hey, actually, well, now I'm creating a new invoicing system or new CRM system, or I'm working on some data science stuff. These models are still valid. So basically, and let me just skip over a couple of use cases. We are seeing use cases like master data management, data governance. We're seeing data mesh design being done with Ellie or with the help of Ellie. And it might all start still with the data platform development project. So the approach that we have to data modeling is basically the bridging of the gap between the world of business and the world of highly technical data things. We are doing everything in a simple fashion. We are being business friendly in the way we do things, in the terminology we use, in the UX that we have in the application itself. It's something that everyone in the organization can learn to use. It's very, very easy. You can have a bunch of data modelers, but you can have hundreds and hundreds or thousands of people who have access to Ellie, who can read what the customer is about, how we define a customer, and so on and so forth, and who can then understand those structures in terms that they understand better. So we want to keep them easy to access. We want to keep them simple so that everyone can benefit, and enabling thus kind of business-driven data design. So as I said, we have two types of models in Ellie. Basically, the idea is that you use the conceptual models or business models to capture the business reality, those entities, what they are, core entities of the business in the glossary. And then you can use logical models within Ellie to create more detailed implementation design, basically, for reporting use cases or whatever. The glossary itself is basically the repository of everything that has been defined in any conceptual model. And the idea is that you're reusing these as you have defined your product once or your customer, you're always reusing that across all of your models. And the glossary makes it possible to navigate between these models and across these models by using these shared entities from the centralized repository of glossary. So this gives you kind of the holistic view of how things are related, even though you might have been modeling just individual small scope things here and there. To get closer to today's main topic, what usually happens in projects where Datavault Builder and Ellie would be used is that you start with your business need, as you should do. You always should start with your business need. This is the Data Vault principles, like most important rule in there. You have to start from a business need. You have to understand what the slice of reality is behind that data. You use Ellie to capture the conceptual model, to capture the glossary, to capture the understanding of what these entities are, and you use these integrations then to push that model into Datavault Builder. And there you can create a data vault very easily, a data vault model out of that, with which you can then build and run your data platform. For Ellie, of course, any model created in Ellie just keeps adding into its glossary. So that means that everything is reusable, regardless and independent of what technologies you are using in other projects. So that's kind of the higher level view of how Ellie helps you with the overall information architecture, even though you would be pointing towards a specific project with Datavault Builder there. I have here a couple of links. I'm not talking more about those, just mentioning that we have a 30-day free trial. We'll get back to that, I hope, soon. But at this point, let me quickly just jump into Ellie to show you a couple of very, very quick things that we can do with Ellie, how we create a data model that Peter is able to use in Datavault Builder. Here we go. So we have here Ellie running on my Chrome browser. This is my personal playground. That's my name. And we have a very simple UI: models, glossary, reports. And here we can pick any model that we might have, and we can create new models. Let's create a one model here. And we have agreed with Peter that we're going to be working with flight models. So I have a flight model here, and I'm going to call it flight model 2 because I think I already did one. And this is going to be about airlines and flights. So the idea is that we have entities like airlines, and we have entities like flights, and we have maybe airports and so on. And we try to figure out, okay, so how does this data work? How are these things related? And very quickly you can create a model where you can see that, okay, well, for the certain flight, you have two relations to an airport. Let's make it nicer like that. We could say that we have from airport and to, so we describe that here, from, and then we have here the airport into which you are flying, and so on and so forth. And then we have the airline that operates the flight or sells the tickets or so on. And we are shortly we're very quickly creating a model that describes the basic content of our data. So what is going on for for this particular example that we're going to be doing here today? I'm not going to go deeper into this yet. This is just a simple model. Let me show you, not that yet, but this basic model here. So Peter will show you next how this is actually turned into something that shows in Datavault Builder. And then we will look more deeply into how this can be expanded and how the glossary in Ellie is used to expand these models. But the idea here is that we are very quickly capturing a basic model of how things work in the real life, and then using this. And of course, in real life, you would have a more complicated example, using this to basically run your Datavault Builder forward. I think, Peter, you can take it over from here, right?
Yes, I just need to unmute myself. I will share my screen in a second. As soon as I get my controls back here, share screen. So thank you for the introduction. And I perfectly agree, and we perfectly agree that it should start with the business needs, with the business terminology. So that's the right approach to design a data warehouse that will last for a long time. So what is the Datavault Builder about? It is a model-driven data warehouse automation tool. This says it's the same approach. We take a data model, and the tool uses patterns to translate this into a working data warehouse, data platform. And we're a little bit different than other tools. So we are delivering all the patterns that you need with it. We maintain them over time. So it could be that your model stays stable over the next 5 or 10 years in certain areas, but we can generate newer technical implementations if the technology, like on the database side, advances. And we deliver you even update scripts for your existing technical models. So this makes your data warehouse very agile, and it makes it ready for self-service requirements, because we have as well an API builder where you can access the data. It will write all the technical joins in the background. You can rename columns very simply to match it exactly your demands for your reporting needs. And it saves you time and cost. That's the main driver today. With agility and time savings and cost savings, let's have a look at how this works. So where are we coming from? We are Swiss-based. Our main market is Europe, US, and Australia. We have as well, you can review it if you're interested. We can send you the reviews by BARC, showing you our top rankings, mainly in product satisfaction, recommendation rate, and what we're very proud of, the time to market category. So what kind of tools does the Data Vault Builder cover? And yes, like all the automation tool, it's converting a data model that you can model within the tool, or if you have more requirements, you like the business terminology to be captured and collaboration between different teams from Ellie, then you can generate your technical code with the tool. But additionally, as well, if you change the technical implementation, it will give a feedback into your model. And by having APIs on both sides, on Ellie's side and on Data Vault Builder side, we are now able to really synchronize as well between the tools, and not just between the Data Vault Builder model and the implementation, but back even to the model. Additionally, Data Vault Builder automates your infrastructure. So if you want to set up a new environment, if you have a new employee that needs a new sandbox, it really takes minutes to set it up, especially if you have like databases in use like Snowflake. You can do just a clone of your Snowflake database, set up a new Dockerized Data Vault Builder, and it literally takes you just a few minutes to get a completely working new environment. What we have in there as well is testing. As we have APIs for everything, you can use CI/CD approaches like setting up a new test environment, load the data model. It will be converted in technical model, load your data, run all your tests, and get the results all through simple REST calls. The next thing that we have in there is deployment. So if you have different environments like development, test, and production, you can synchronize the different objects between them. We have as well a fully Git flow-based process. So if you have bigger teams working on different branches of your model, that's possible as well. And if you're tired of manually deploying, and you will get tired of it if you are working agile, because you're doing it maybe every 2 weeks or even weekly, then you can automate deployment as well using REST APIs for that. Operation is built in, so a scheduler is there. You can use your existing external scheduler, but the tool offers one as well. It's automatically calculating based on the dependencies on the model, the load order, how the stuff needs to be loaded and how it needs to be processed. It's taking care of parallelization and everything. It logs the results. And at the end, if you're a bigger corporation, maybe you are interested in high availability. So we can show you as well how this is working with the Data Vault Builder. So what does it do layer-wise? Because we have the data model, and this is the input that is coming from Ellie in this case, and we're generating the technical model below it. And that's the Data Vault model, and it's always a Data Vault model with the Data Vault Builder. But that's not what your consumers want to see. They want to get a dimensional model or even maybe different point of view. So we have as well a layer in it that is denormalizing the data up to a level that it fits with the needs as you need it for your tools like MicroStrategy, Power BI, Click, Tableau, whatever you're using, because depending on your consumers, that will be a little bit a different view, but that's fine because we are here hyper-normalized. We can generate the kind of denormalization that you need for your tool. And that's an important message. If people ask about Data Vault, they are sometimes afraid that there are a lot of technical tables created. That might be true down here in the core, but it's not exposed to the outside world. So they will receive exactly what they are expecting based on the models and the objects they created up here. As well, on the source side, we can connect to different data sources, load them, and how the Data Vault Builder works, it's mainly an ELT tool, so it relies on database platforms to run on. So all the variants of SQL Server, including Synapse, Snowflake, Exasol, Oracle, Postgre, you can choose which kind of database you want to use, but it needs to be one of the supported databases because we're optimizing our code constantly for this kind of database. we go a little bit more technical as a last step. So there is a staging layer. It can connect through JDBC connections to your data sources, or if your data is already staged, a lot of our Snowflake customers are having that, then you can use an ELT loader. Then we go into the core, we persist the data, we historize it automatically, and then we create a different point of views for your consumers. It might be dimensional, it might be to a normal form if you're having tools maybe like Cognos or sub-business objects, or if you are having data scientists, it might be as well flat tables because they are using Python, they don't want to write any joins, they just want to have all the features for their AI projects denormalized to one line. That's possible, you choose it. On top of it, you can define virtual rules to cleanse your data and either output it directly. That's possible if the performance is sufficient and if you don't need to historize the results of the calculation, or you can store back the result in the so-called business vault in the core. That's everything covered by one tool, so you don't need to worry to skip between different tools, have different servers. Graphical user interfaces is just handled by one single approach. And everything that we do in the Data Vault Builder since the beginning has its own API. And that's great because Ellie now, and that's changed since the last webinar that we did together, has added as well APIs that we now can use to extract the models directly from Ellie and import them into the Data Vault. And this is what we will show today. And it's the first time we're doing this, so I'm really curious if everything works out, but it should.
I trust you, Peter.
So let me reshare my screen. Good. So, and the first part will be very boring. I will just run a script, which is called transform Ellie, and now the new way, the API way, and it's installing now the data model that you have was preparing into a new empty Data Vault Builder environment. So this is how it looked like before I started the script, and within a few seconds, we get the data model over here, including the connections and everything. And the cool thing is that this is my starting point now. So I now can start connecting it in a data-driven approach with data. So let's go through the different modules we have here. Staging will give me the data. Data Vault is here creating the implementation, how data is stored. We will have the outputs then denormalized up to a certain level. We can put in the business rules. That's the same as you have seen on the PowerPoint slides. I will not show today everything. If you're interested in the really workflow, how the tool works, please join one of our other webinars. I will concentrate here to give just a small sample that you can as well do some changes to his model, and we can show you how this is again synchronizing. So let's go back to the staging area. Let's create here a new source connection. I call it just CSV. I should better call it something where the data is really coming from. And now I get access from the source system to all the data that is there. There are some test sample files added on our server. So let's take here my transaction table. And one of the big advantages of the Data Vault Builder is that it's working directly with your database in real time, not on your production system, but on your development or sandbox system. But it means in the moment I'm defining something, it will create the corresponding tables on the database. It will create the ETL flows in that case because it's external data, and start loading the data. This means right now we have created a production ready implementation for a staging load. And because it's server based, we could even here continue while it's still loading. It already finished some more tables, and that would be working fine. Let's just add 2 more tables, and I still should select which columns I want. And that's it. So we have now created 3 different tables, staged them. Let's go to the next level. I have here as well a data viewer in it, so I would go most probably to my data and have a short look at the value distribution, maybe visualize that kind of data to see how the values are distributed. And I see that WN, which is Southwestern Airlines, had the most number of flights in my file. But at the same time, I see as well that I have only North American Airlines in here. And this is probably something I would share as well with my business user to check, is this okay for a first implementation? Should we look for other sources of data? So again, it's about communication with your business users. Show them early what is going on, give them some feedback, because if you show it them visually, usually they can give you much more input back and explain how stuff is working. And now the last thing I will do here, I will add a load from our staging area into our Datavault model. So here, very crucial is to define the business key. And here again, because we're working directly with the database, we can do different kinds of checks on it before we really implement it. And this is the agile approach. Test it in every single small step. So let's assume that somebody tells us from the business that the flight number would be like your business key. So let's test that. No, don't test that. Let's add the date as well. So let's assume this is what they gave us as business key. And because the data is already staged in the database, we can ask the database with one single click, is this combination of key unique? And it tells us, no, it's not. And not just it's not, it gives us a sample of the data that is not unique. And if I go back now to the business user and show him this here, within a few seconds, I will probably get the feedback, oh yes, code sharing, we forgot about that. That's part of our data. So we maybe need to as well redefine the definition of our flight. And let's test this again. And we get the next issue. Now what is happening now? And we see that now a lot of flights by WN are duplicates. So they are reusing the same flight number on the same day. Why? Because they have round trip flights. So we need to add this as well. By the way, this is something that we really needed to check with them because we didn't understood it. So let's add the origin. And this is really the agile approach, that we don't just create something and trust that it will work, hopefully, but we test it. And this is really something that people that worked before with Datavault understand how important it is, because that's the most expensive error you could do if you get your business keys wrong and need to change your model later. So I'm skipping a lot of options and I just let it create everything automatically. So we'll create a hub load, which is a collection of all the keys that are there, and it creates a satellite load, which is collection of your context, of your descriptions of your keys. And this is already historized load created completely automatic as well. More technical objects were created, like the tracking satellites. I don't bother you with that, just that you know it is very complete. So, and I did one mistake. What did I do? I forgot to load my hub first. And this worked out. Data is loaded. And now let's assume that based on the data that we have loaded here, we get some kind of a feedback that something is not right matching in our data model. And now I would give back the control to Juha, that he can check on it what went wrong. Not what went wrong, what we need to improve.
Indeed. Yeah, so what you saw there actually with Peter's data problems is kind of symptomatic of issues with the underlying data model. So let's have a look at what we can do about that in Ellie. And consider now that, this has to go away. There we go. Consider now that we started with a model like this. So we had the airline, the airport, and the flight, and we were quite happy with it. We had origin, destination, and so on. But clearly, we had problems with the business case, and perhaps we have understood that the business requires more information around this. So I started setting this up, building a little bit more. And now we're getting into the actual work of building a conceptual model to understand the business better. So we had the airport, we had the airline, we had the flight, and now perhaps we have been missing something. I have added an aircraft entity here. We can define that as a master type of entity, and then we could write what the aircraft actually means. So this would be a single physical plane going from place A to place A or whatever. But we are now talking about the physical actual machine here. We would define that properly. We could add attributes even just for the conceptual entity and the glossary here. And then we can say that, all right, we're also missing something else. We are missing the flight route. So we can type here whatever. And this is the search or create field in Ellie's canvas. So as I type here flight route, I can create the flight route entity right now. And I'll define that as entity type contract. This is a kind of a best practice categorization thing in Ellie, of which we can talk about more later in a separate event or something. But we can now say that, okay, there's actually a flight route from and to, I'm not going to add the descriptions there, which is being realized by individual flights. So on each route, we are getting flights going, today it's flying there and tomorrow it's flying the exact same route. The aircraft, the physical aircraft might change. And then we'll think, okay, well, the flight is the action of flying from Helsinki to Amsterdam or Berlin to Geneva or whatever. So actually the flight number that we have in our glossary might actually be a separate thing. And now we can check that the flight is defined as a journey taken by a single aircraft from origin to destination, etc., etc. And our flight number entity here says that this is a code given to a flight by its selling airline. So this enables us to accurately model the code sharing situation also. We can say that the airline is selling the flight numbers basically in the tickets, but on an individual flight, we might have multiple flight numbers. And the flight number is, of course, utilized in several different flights because the same route is being repeated by the same operating airline over and over again, and so on and so forth. So we start building up a more complicated model as we understand more about the business domain. And the cool thing here is that we're constantly adding into the glossary. So we have these entities in the glossary. Next time I'm working with flights in this same organization here, I will understand that, all right, well, I have now defined flight number as such. I will know that I need to reuse that. And I can see that it is being used in certain models and it has certain relationships with other entities. So this is how we're utilizing the glossary to model the next project and the next project and so on and so forth, constantly building up this understanding of how things should actually work. So we end up with something like this. I think this is the exact model I have given Peter. And here we can see that we have now rather major changes into our simple model, creating something that is probably more closer to actual reality of how airlines work. I think that is, Peter, your cue then to pick it up from here.
Yes, thank you. So let's go back and do the boring stuff again. And run it. It compares now, and it's not just checking for new objects, it's as well checking for changed or removed objects. And hopefully in a few seconds, we will see that our model will be expanded. So let's clear that. Let's look again for the flight. And we see already that we have here some more objects. And the cool thing is that I have configured my CI/CD process to say, hey, everything that I created manually here for my source data should stay. Don't compare that with the Ellie model because it doesn't contain this technical level. So it is containing still the load. It is still containing the satellite, and it's still containing the data. It just added on the conceptual level and on the logical level what was changed in the data model. Now we had one question on the chat, if there is a separation between raw vault and business vault. Yes, there is. What I'm creating here is the raw vault. For the business vault, I would go through the dimension model, create my business rules, and from there go back to the staging area and pull it in here as new objects. I would get new satellites, maybe I would get a new load for a hub or for a link if I do some like fuzzy matching between objects. So yes, there is a clear separation. We even have a clear separation for persistent staging, which is our definition that if the business keys are technical keys, because we don't have any proper business keys as it sometimes happens, because we have duplicate on product numbers, because we have duplicate on nearly everything sometimes, or empty keys, then we could load it on the technical key and would separate it logically into the so-called persistent staging area. So let's assume that we have now extended our model. So the next thing would be that we choose the level of denormalization. Here we are taking like the grain of the object, which would correspond most probably with the objects we have defined in Ellie. We can define here if we want to output the so-called STD type 1 view. So that's the latest information that the data warehouse got about a specific key, so about a specific flight, or if we want to output the full history, if we do so, in the background, it creates all the technical objects like the pit table, bridge tables, whatever you need to output this data efficiently. So you don't need to take care of it. You should really define on the requirement level what you want to create as an output. So let's create this one here. Let's select a kind of columns. And what we see here is that some objects were already modeled, like the flight route, flight number, and aircraft, but they were not implemented technically yet. So we see that's the part that we can select here technically, but we could already output the keys of other objects. They would be just empty for the time being, but this is our start here, and we can expand it at any point in time. So we take just some random columns. Let's store that, and this is just a virtual layer in the Datavault Builder. So immediately after we save it, we can review it. We can see what the output will be. And the last thing would be that we would write some business rules. I don't want to do that. I just output it. I publish my data, and let's do that. Let's go back to the data viewer. Let's have a look on our access layer, and this is really already live. So if on this specific Datavault Builder instance, a reporting tool is connected, they could query already exactly this kind of data. So they could get the carriers, they could get the value distribution in this, and could already review the results of this first load. And this is really how agility works. So they would maybe come back and say, yes, the data is correct, but maybe this shouldn't be called carrier, but it should be called carrier code. So we go back, and now in iterating stories in the next sprints, you can go and adapt it and maybe rename it to carrier code. And this is really what the Datavault Builder is about, that it helps you to build an agile workflow on top of the data model we have received. So let's go back here, and that would be already like a first change, but we can do much more. We can do a complete refactoring of our core because we have a layer keeping the interface stable to our data recipients. Good. So this went very well. It went, I think we're a little bit ahead of time, but that's, I think, a good thing.
Certainly, yeah. If there are any questions from the participants, I think we have time to answer those. I just want to mention about Ellie that the free trial that I mentioned is indeed available. You can just go to our website, ellie.ai. You can get 30 days for free, no questions asked, or well, we will contact you, but nevertheless, and it's completely full production version of Ellie, so you can do everything with it. If you want to keep it, of course, then you can. So there's all kinds of interesting things also on that website, like blog posts and whatnot. So I encourage you to find out more. You can also find me on LinkedIn or from juha.korpela@ellie.ai to ask me more about that. But that's the advertisement part, Peter. So if there are any questions or comments.
Exactly. As well, from our side, we do weekly webinars where we go deeper into the technical details of everything, answer your question. If you have a bigger group that wants to get really into some specific details like bitemporality or versioning of the code, like the Git flow process or anything, just contact us and we will schedule a meeting with you. We do as well POCs through our partners. We have a lot of implementation partners in different regions, so we can connect you to the right people.
This is also true for Ellie. So we have technology partners like Datavault Builder guys here, and also implementation partners, consultancies around Europe and elsewhere. And we are fast expanding, I would say.
Okay, so there is as well a question about if there are any databases recommended. Usually it depends. It really depends on where you are. There are databases created especially for analytical usage, like Snowflake, Exasol, and Synapse. but really built for the cloud is for sure Snowflake. You can really start the environment there within a few minutes. It's working on different levels. You can do single record insert and you can do batch insert, and everything is just working. You don't need any DBAs. Exasol has the advantage that you can go on premises. So if you really have the requirement by your laws that you can't go into the cloud, then Exasol might be an option. Synapse, probably if you're a Microsoft only shop and this is your only option, it could be an option. And as well, SQL Server for smaller installations. If you already have licensed it, it works up to a certain size, but it's not comparable to like a database like Snowflake that is able to manage really billion of rows in a few minutes just by defining that you want to do that. Yeah. And are you always renaming different choose, or how do you master that? Okay. So there is a question that if we can output, let me show you the slide that we know what we're talking about. Give me 1 second. And it's a very good question. I like it. Okay, so I give share. So in this picture, we have the possibility to output the core to different interfaces. And the question is, do you need to rename the columns every time? No, there are two, in fact, 3 places where you can rename columns. One is here, if you want to rename it for all the interfaces, or you can rename it here for a specific interface, especially if you have like legal reporting, you need to define like 10 or 20 columns that your regulator needs to receive, then you do it here, or even in the business rules where we don't recommend it because then it's not that automatically tracked into data lineage and everything like that. So yes, there are 2 different ways, doing it in the core and doing it here. And if you have it already captured somewhere, like in Ellie, then there are APIs in the Datavault Builder that can as well add this kind of metadata to the objects we're creating. Because we are loading the column names from the source as they are, and here you can place on top of it metadata as it should be named in the further interfaces downstream.
Indeed, if I may add to that, as you might have seen from my quick Ellie demo, it is also possible to define attributes already on the business conceptual level within Ellie. And of course, the idea there should be that you are defining attributes as they appear to the business, so using business names and so on. And it is something that is given through the API, and there's practically no problem getting that into Datavault Builder also.
Okay. There's one more question. Is there a plan roadmap for persistent layer on S3? Simply not, because we are relying with Datavault and heavily joining stuff together. So there would need to be some additional layer on top of S3, allowing us this kind of database functionality, because we are an ELT tool, so we don't offer that. We are very well in coordinating, very well in documenting what we are doing, but we are not the data moving guys that move between different files ourselves. We always rely on technology, so S3 directly, no. There is a question as well for Redshift. No, Redshift is currently not on our roadmap. We get from time to time requests, but for the time being, no. One more question. How does DVB currently supporting fetching source data from Delta Parquet files stored in Azure Data Lake storage? We have the Databricks connector built in that you can use to connect to your sources. Yes.
And Ron has pointed out an important pair of words, vertical lineage. So this is all about vertical lineage.
Yes, I even was so happy that we finished everything on time that I didn't show you as well that we have data lineage then in the tool built in, showing you really from the left side, from your source system, through your staging tables, through your core model, your denormalization level, through your business rules up to the source. And all this information that we are presenting here in the tool are available as APIs and as views in the database. So if you want to get all this lineage information and export it into your reports, that's possible. So we have like clients using Tableau, and they have a data island just with the metadata from the Datavault Builder and presenting all the metadata there. So people don't need to go back to the Datavault Builder, or maybe even don't need to go back to Ellie just for a quick lookup of a definition of an object, because Ellie sent us this information. And as we are presenting it to the reporting tools, they can display this kind of information mastered in Ellie in the reports.
Indeed. All right.
Good. Any more questions? If not, then let me share just our last slide.
Oh, sorry, Peter. There's one question that I really want to answer from Danny. Thanks for this question. How do the Datavault Builder and Ellie integrate with data catalogs like Collibra and Infosys? Ellie does. So we already have clients integrating Ellie with data catalog solutions. We are in the progress of designing, and within this year, we're building also a native two-way integration with Collibra's data catalog. Of course, the idea there is to match the, let's say, business conceptual metadata in Ellie with the technical metadata in a catalog like Collibra. So this is certainly a use case for us, very much doing that.
So that's good, because we don't. So
yeah.
Good. So
all right, excellent. Hey, thank you, Peter.
Just as last slide, that you know how to contact us. So just contact Juha, me, or Tobias. That's our partner manager at Datavault Builder. If you want to get any further presentations, contact us at LinkedIn as well. If you don't, if you're not interested in our product, if you're just interested in Datavault as such, you want to discuss some topics, I'm really happy to do that. I'm really into data modeling and looking forward for any questions to discuss anything. So feel free to contact me at any point in time.
Same for my part.
So thank you a lot. Yeah, it was a pleasure today. Thank you for everybody that was attending, and looking forward hopefully hearing you soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.